Hey, it's Jo, and today's video is to talk about psychological resilience and what that is. So psychological resilience, it's a bit of a pop phrase in psychology, but we all know what psychology is. It's the study of human behavior, thoughts and behavior, and resilience. It's that ability to bounce back after a difficulty, after a challenge. So how we do that is a focus of psychologists. So when we talk about psychological resilience, what we're talking about is the ability to mentally or emotionally cope with a crisis that's happened in your life, or a challenge, or an overwhelming, stressful situation. Resilience exists when the person uses mental processes, so thought processes and behaviors, their actions, the things that they do, in promoting personal assets and protecting themselves from the negative effect of the stress or the crisis. So we're going to look at a few ways that people can protect themselves from these stresses, and we all go through them in life. So there's going to be moments in your life where you are more resilient and less resilient, but we can start building up those resources because our goal is to be calm and steady in the storm. So even when things are not okay, having a sense that you still are all right. That's what psychological resilience essentially is. So what things can we do to help promote resilience? Number one, find a sense of purpose in your life. I think this is one of the most important things that you can possibly do. It's really hard to be heading towards a destination when you don't even know what the destination is. How can you get to a place when you don't know where the place is, where it resides? It's like having values, and values are what drive our behavior. So knowing what drives your behavior and knowing where you're going gives you a bit of a sense of purpose. We all need purpose. I think it's one of the most fundamental constructs of humanity, a reason to be here. Otherwise, life is, as Solomon said, just vanity. It has no meaning, and a meaningless life is a very sad and lonely life. So in the face of a crisis or a tragedy, finding a sense of purpose can play an important role in your recovery. So this might mean a few different things. It might mean that you become involved in your community, that you have a sense of belonging, a sense of community, that you have a place in this world with those around you. It might be cultivating your spirituality, starting that evolutionary process of questioning, who am I? Why am I here? It doesn't always have to be those big esoteric questions, but what do I believe in? What is this life all about? What is the meaning behind it? Or it might be just simply participating in activities, doing things that are enjoyable and meaningful to you. Could be about relationships, could be about career, could be about, for some people it might be about finances, but whatever it is, having a sense of purpose and meaning, it really is, it gives you strength to get out of bed when you know what today is going to be about. All right, number two, build positive beliefs in your abilities. Build positive beliefs in your abilities. So this means having confidence in yourself. I talk about self-efficacy a lot, but the confidence in your own ability to cope with the stresses of life can be a really important part in resilience. If you are faced with a challenge and your first and immediate automatic thought is to think, I can't do it, it's too hard, then the most likely outcome is that you will be defeated. But if you take every challenge head on, believing that you can do it, and also even if you can't, even if you end up failing, that you're going to be okay and that you will learn, you'll get lessons from those experiences. Research has demonstrated that your self-esteem plays an important role in coping with stress and recovery from difficult events or challenges. So remind yourself of your strengths and accomplishments because everybody has them. All right, number 3, develop a strong network. So it's important to have people you can confide in, having to care and caring, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Caring and supportive people around you is a protective factor during times of crisis. I am very much a person who likes my own company. I am not an extrovert. I don't have a big, broad circle of friends. But when things are tough, it's almost like a human need to want someone around you. That sense of comfort, that sense of security, a fundamental human need. So while simply talking about a situation with a friend or loved one won't make your troubles go away, it allows you to share your feelings, yet support, receive positive feedback, and come up with possible solutions to your problems. Okay, number four in our tips to improve or boost psychological resilience is to embrace change. They say in psychology that a sign of wisdom is a person's capacity and willingness to accept change. Now, I am a creature of habit. I love things to be stable and predictable. Change really floors me. So maybe I'm not so wise, but it's an area of life that I'm working on. And change can be really exciting. I did a massive change in my life 2 years ago. I was living in Sydney and I was not happy. I was in that grind, getting up every day, 90 minutes on the freeway to work, 90 minutes home in a job that I liked my job, but it was long hours and it was challenging. And then I'd come home and as a single mum, having to do all those things, cook the dinners, do the homework, feed the dogs. It was the grind of life, but I was used to it. I didn't really know any different. But one day I just needed a change. So I had my midlife crisis and I found a place in Queensland, a place that I had never been to. It looked beautiful on Google Maps, didn't know a single person there. And after living in one place for 20 years, I decided to make the biggest change of my life. And that meant leaving my mum, it meant leaving my family in Sydney, and doing something crazy and impulsive where the results were not promised. I didn't know if I would be happier, but I had to have a try. So I packed up the car. My son and I, we drove 1,500 kilometers north and came to the place that I'm living in now. And it was the best thing I've ever done, more happy than I've ever been. So sometimes you've got to take that leap of faith. You've got to risk things. And what was the worst possible outcome? I didn't like it here. It wasn't irreversible. I could always go back, but I won't because I love it here. But yeah, change. So flexibility is an essential part of resilience. By learning how to become more adaptable, you'll be better equipped to respond when you're faced with those life crises. Okay, number 5 tip. Now this one's going to sound simplistic and obvious, but I'll talk to you about it. Be optimistic. Staying optimistic during the dark periods can be difficult, but maintaining a hopeful, optimistic outlook is so important because in a way we create our realities. Our thoughts become our words. You've heard me say this before. Our words become our behaviors and our behaviors become our reality. Be optimistic. Now, when things are tough, you know how easy it is to say, oh, it's all gone to crap. It's not going to work out. Why do I try? It's really easy to fall into those self-limiting beliefs and patterns. But these are the times that you need to challenge yourself, because when things are going well, you don't have a problem. No one comes and sees me because their life is great. They come because they're struggling with the challenges that their life is bringing. I'm sorry about that. Let me mute that computer behind. So that's the challenge. I always say to myself in those dark moments, this is the time I need to be optimistic. And sometimes the thought is just as simple as saying, today I've just got to get through the next hour. taking those little small steps. And positive thinking does not mean ignoring the problem in order to focus on positive outcomes. It means understanding that setbacks are temporary and that you have the skills and the abilities to combat the challenges that you face. So what you are dealing with may be difficult, but it's important to remain hopeful and positive that tomorrow or this afternoon or next week will get better, because nothing is permanent. Everything changes. Happiness turns to grief, grief turns to joy, and round it goes. That is the cycle of life. It is our human condition. Number 6, nurture yourself. This is self-care, everybody. You've heard me talk about this before. When you're stressed, it can be all too easy to neglect your own needs. You might lose your appetite. You might give up your walks. You might give up those little things that you usually do for yourself, buying yourself a little treat. You might not get enough sleep. You might not be doing the things that are helpful to you. And this means you have to stop. You have to recognize that you are not looking after yourself. And the analogy that I give you about the oxygen mask, this is where you need to put on your oxygen mask. When you're flying on a plane and they make that announcement, in the unlikely event of an emergency, an oxygen mask will fall from the cabin above you. Please place the oxygen mask over your nose and mouth, first before attempting to help others. So looking after yourself first is not selfish. I need to say this to the parents and the caregivers especially. Looking after yourself is not selfish. In fact, it is the complete opposite. You can't look after other people if you are not okay. Just like on that flight, if there was an emergency and you pass out and your children are sitting there depending upon you, how are you of any use to them? So it's the same principle. You must look after you. And I can't stress it enough. Focus on building your own self-nurturance skills. And even when you're troubled, make time for activities that help you. Okay, number 7, develop your problem-solving skills. What's the first thing that happens when we're in a crisis? We tend to just panic, don't we? We just tend to react. And that's normal because our limbic system is designed that way. So when we're overwhelmed, when we're fearful, when we're in a threat or a perceived threat, our limbic system gets turned on. Our sympathetic nervous system gets activated. We're ready to fight or flee or freeze. We have to sort of override that, and we can. We've got a human brain, a cerebral cortex for a reason. Yes, we're going to have that natural reaction where our body's ready to respond, but we need to turn on the frontal cortex. This is where our ability to solve problems resides, our ability to have consequential thinking, problem solving, calculation, abstract thinking. We need to override those emotional systems, because if we let the emotional system take charge, which it's a very strong system, we need that system, but if it takes charge, our rational brain is offline, it's asleep, so we need to turn it on. Research suggests that people who are able to come up with solutions to a problem are better able to cope with problems than those who cannot generate solutions. Now, sometimes the solutions may or may not work, but it's better to do something than nothing. It's better to do something than nothing, because even if your solution fails, you've learned what not to do. You've learned something. So we are up to number 8, establish goals. So goal setting, also something that happens in that frontal lobe. Crisis situations are daunting. There may even be times where you feel like you can't get through something, that the challenge is insurmountable. But resilient people are able to view these situations in a realistic way and then set reasonable goals to deal with the problem. So when you find yourself becoming overwhelmed by a situation, take a step back, press pause, take a breath, and simply assess what is happening and what you need to do. It's very similar to things we've just spoken about, but you do not want to react too hastily. Brainstorm some possible solutions. Talk to some people about what they would do, and then break them down into manageable steps. This is a really important part. If your goal is way over here, then if you try to get there in one step, you might fall down the chasm in between. So if this is your goal, how do you get there? Break it down. What do I need to do here? And do that first. And then what's the next step in that plan? And the next step. And before you know it, you are already at your goal. So problem solve, and you can use the SMART, if you've heard of the SMART acronym. It's a way to sort of problem solve and set goals. So they have to be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time framed. It's great to have a goal. Let's say my goal is to buy a home. How am I going to do that? Maybe I have to work a little harder. Maybe I have to get a second job. Maybe I need to consider saving some money. But how long is that going to take me? Am I going to just talk about that for a long time? No, I'm going to start doing things today. And my end goal might be 12 months. It might be 2 years. But you have this structured, and that's how we solve goals. And that's how in psychology we engage in solution-focused therapies. All right. I might just skip a couple and go to the last one, because I end up always talking much longer than I planned to talk. But the last one I think I'll mention is to keep working on your skills. Resilience may take time to build, so don't get discouraged if you still struggle to cope with problems and stresses. Everyone can learn to be resilient, and it doesn't involve any specific set of behaviors or actions. Resilience can vary dramatically from one person to the next. So work with little steps within you and keep working on it. So because I'm a clinical psychologist, people think I've got my act together. No, I'm a work in progress, and I will always be a work in progress. That's just the nature of humans. When I was 16, I probably thought I knew everything and had it all together. But as we mature and as we learn more, we realize how little we know. So keep working on your skills. Don't beat yourself up because you fail at something. We all fail at things. Allow yourself to build a bit of a thick skin, and that's what resilience is. Prepare yourself for some rejections. It happens to us all. But as one door closes, another door opens, and I promise you that. So keep the faith. And I guess if I could add one last thing, faith is a really important part of resilience. And whatever your faith is, whether you believe in God, the universe, some other sort of supernatural power, whatever it is, have some faith that things will be okay in the end. I can't imagine a life without faith. Faith has got me through a lot of things, and it's a lovely crutch for when you feel like you can't do it on your own, that there is something in this world that's bigger and better and more powerful than you. And that is like a lifeline and a life force for me. Okay, so that's it. That's our little talk on psychological resilience and how to bounce back after tough times. If you have any questions, you can contact me, energymedicine777@gmail.com, or subscribe to my videos. I'm trying to update content regularly. Happy to answer questions though, so email me directly or feel free to leave a question or a comment below, and I'll endeavour to respond. Okay, wherever you are, have a very happy and peace-filled day. Look after yourselves and each other, and take care. Bye-bye.